Alright, so episode 3 of Daredevil Born Again has released, and I'm going to give my spoiler review. So if you have not seen the new episode yet, I highly suggest watching it before continuing with this video. Alright, so right off, this is a nearly direct adaptation of the continuation of the White Tiger's story in the Brian Michael Bendis comic run. I actually just finished reading it the other night, so I'm so glad that I got to see the complete story in the comic and how they adapted it in the show. And they did a really great job at getting the key moments adapted in a way that really worked, and they did change how it turns out. I'm not going to spoil what happens in the book, but the outcome does happen, it's just not in the same way. And you can assume, based off what happens in this episode with Hector being killed at the end, that something like that might happen in the comic. And again, I'm not going to say, because if anyone wants to read it, I definitely recommend it, because you will see all the similarities they pulled from the situations in the court and just Hector in general, how he's dealing with the situation. They did a really great job of adapting that, and it felt really good getting back into the courthouse in this episode. A majority of this episode took place in that courtroom, and we hadn't really seen that in a long time. Like, we did see bits in episode 2, but the original series of Daredevil really had a lot of those moments in the courthouse, and they were really executed really well. Like, Matt is so good in his element, defending whoever he's defending, in this case Hector. He's got all the right points, and there always is a challenge he has to face. Like in this case, the witness not coming clean on what happened the night Hector intervened and the cop was killed. So there's always that challenge that he has to go through, and they really do a great job in this episode of bringing that back, and it feels really impactful. Like, obviously you're rooting for Hector to win and get out of that situation, and he does, but there is a tragic end to it. Now, the other thing in this episode is Fisk, and Fisk is having to deal with the criminal underworld kind of getting unhinged with him not assuming the leadership in the obvious way. Obviously you can tell he is pulling some strings, and his assistant is kind of dealing with getting rid of those tensions between gangs, but you already know Fisk is in the background dealing with the mobs and all that, and still proving he is the kingpin. By the end of this, he has a clear reason to go after what his campaign was all about, which was ridding New York City of vigilantes. And when the White Tiger walks, he uses that as an opportunity to say, you let a vigilante who killed a cop in, you know, the way that they view it, they let him walk, and he doesn't think that's right. So obviously he has someone go after White Tiger and kill him. You may think that it was Frank Castle that pulled the trigger because he's wearing the vest and the skull. It's not Frank Castle. You can see when Hector is found not guilty in the court, all the cops are looking at each other like, we need to do something about this. And this is a symbol that the cops have tarnished and have adopted for police brutality. So Frank is in hiding, and he's like, these people ruined what that symbol stands for. So he's obviously angry in the background. We probably will see him in the next episode. I'm betting that he is going to come with a fury at the police that are abusing his symbol for things that are very wrong and not ethical. So he's going to come back with Daredevil and try to, you know, take them down. But it is the police force that is behind Hector's killing. It's pretty obvious, and in a sense I didn't think it would happen in this episode, but I did know that was coming, where Hector was going to die, because I did see set videos of him running down that alleyway and then acting like he was shot in the head, and then someone in a vest that looked like it had the skull on it walks down the road. So I knew that was coming as soon as he heard a glass break and he looked down the alleyway. I knew that was coming. So mainly this episode just does a really great job with the courtroom drama stuff, dealing with Hector. The emotional moments between him and Matt in his holding cell are really good too, where he's talking about wanting to go back to Puerto Rico and be on the beach and hear the frogs that he talks about and be in that environment where he feels safe and at home and with his family. And obviously it doesn't end very well for him, and I'm interested to see what the next episode does with the fallout of that action and how Matt will deal with that. Like, now New York's newly brought up vigilante in Daredevil's absence is gone. Daredevil's going to have to come back soon. So like I said, the courtroom drama stuff, Matt and Hector's dynamic, and Matt really giving it his all to get Hector out of prison is a really great standout aspect to this episode, and they did a really great job with adapting the material. Like I said, they did it differently, but they did it in a really good way that fits the narrative for the overall season for the show, I feel. So really great job on this episode. That's all I have to say about episode 3. Make sure to stay tuned for my episode 4 review dropping next Wednesday.